Nathan was thrilled with his new second-hand TV. It had a classic vintage look, and he'd been looking for one just like it. He hooked it up to his living room's old entertainment system and flipped it on, expecting a relaxing night of shows. The TV flickered for a moment, but that was normal for such an old model. The glow from the screen bathed the room in an eerie cold light. It wasn't long before Nathan felt uneasy. The static on the screen slowly shifted, creating unnatural shapes. At first he dismissed it, but then the images started to shift. There were figures, dark shapes on the screen, twisting and flickering. Nathan rubbed his eyes. This couldn't be right. The screen flickered again, but this time, he saw something different. It was a face. A twisted demonic face with hollow eyes, staring straight at him. His heart raced, and his breath hitched in his throat. He quickly turned the volume down, but the faces remained, clearer now, as though they were reaching out from the screen. He stood frozen, unable to look away. The figures seemed to shift and grow, trying to break free. For a brief moment he thought he saw the image of something moving behind the screen, something that shouldn't be there. His pulse quickened. Was he imagining this? No, it felt too real. And then, the whispers began. At first it was just a murmur, like a faint wind across a microphone. But soon the whispers grew louder, more coherent. "Help me," it said over and over again. Nathan dropped the remote, his hands trembling. He knew he had to turn it off, but his body went. The next morning, Nathan was unable to shake this strange encounter. He found himself staring at the TV, but now it was silent, still, almost too calm. Ben, his best friend, was over to visit, and Nathan reluctantly shared what had happened. Ben, the skeptic, laughed it off. "Dude, it's just an old TV. Probably a short circuit or something." Nathan shook his head. He wanted to believe Ben, but the image of that twisted face haunted him. That eerie whisper echoed in his mind every time he tried to sleep. Ben suggested they try watching a movie, a distraction from the fear that still clung to Nathan. They sat down on the couch, and Ben flicked on the TV. The screen came to life, but there was something off about it. Nathan couldn't put his finger on it, but it wasn't the same. The cold chill returned. The shadows in the room felt too deep, too thick. He looked at Ben, his hands clenched. "We shouldn't have turned it on." But Ben, oblivious, just smiled. "Relax, man. It's just a glitch." The uneasy feeling lingered long after Ben left. That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. He kept hearing soft whispers coming from the direction of the TV. It was almost as if the device was calling to him. Unable to resist, he slowly walked into the living room, his heart pounding in his chest. The TV was off now, but the fear gnawed at him. The silence felt wrong, like the calm before a storm. He reached for the remote, hesitating for a moment. A voice inside urged him to leave it alone, but curiosity took over. As he pressed the power button, the screen flickered, just like before. The same demonic face appeared, its hollow eyes glaring at him. Nathan recoiled, but he couldn't tear his eyes away. The whispers returned, louder now. "Help me, I'm here." It wasn't just a glitch. This was something much worse. The TV wasn't just broken, it was a gateway, and something was trying to break through. The following days were filled with sleepless nights for Nathan. The whispers wouldn't stop. They seemed to come from the TV, from the walls, from the very air around him. His reflection in the mirror looked hollow, tired. Each day, the fear grew stronger. He tried to convince himself it was all in his head, but deep down, he knew something was terribly wrong. He would hear the faintest sounds in the room, scratching at the walls, like something was trying to claw its way out. The images on the screen began to grow more vivid, more terrifying. They weren't just static distortions anymore. They were complete, clear visions of the demon trapped inside. The demon seemed to be watching him, waiting for the moment it could finally escape. Every time Nathan looked at the screen, it felt like the thing was getting closer. It was almost as if it was trying to reach him through the TV. His hands shook as he reached for the remote again, but something stopped him. He couldn't press the button. What if this time it was? Nathan couldn't take it anymore. The voices, the images, the relentless terror, it was all too much. He grabbed the remote with trembling hands and pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life, but this time, it was different. The room's atmosphere seemed to shift, becoming heavier, colder. The demon's face appeared, but this time, its smile was more sinister. It wasn't just watching him, it was laughing. The screen started to distort, and for a split second, Nathan saw something that made his blood run cold. A glimpse of a figure, not just on the TV screen, but in the room with him, standing in the dark corner. Nathan froze, his breath catching in his throat. The figure stepped forward, its shape growing clearer. It was human, but not human. Its eyes were dark, empty voids, and it was smiling too. "You're mine now," the figure whispered, its voice both cold and familiar. Nathan felt a chill crawl up his spine. He wasn't alone. It had already crossed over. Nathan tried to move on after the first encounter, but the TV's pull was undeniable. Every night, he heard whispers coming from the living room. Reluctantly, he turned the TV on again. The demonic face appeared once more, its presence stronger, more sinister. Nathan felt the TV wasn't just broken, it was a doorway, a link to something far darker. The demon began to speak, calling him, telling him that he was its vessel. Nathan turned off the TV, but the words lingered. The demon wasn't done. It was just getting started. Nathan sought out Claire, the mysterious woman from his past, desperate for answers. She revealed that the demon was tied to his bloodline, and warned him that the more he interacted with the TV, the more it would take control. Claire was cryptic, saying that stopping it was possible but dangerous. Nathan had no choice but to listen. The demon's grip was tightening, and every moment of resistance made it stronger. Ignoring Claire's warnings, Nathan tried to resist, but one night, the demon overtook him. As he stared at the TV, it wasn't just an image, it was him. His reflection twisted into the demonic face. The whispers grew into voices in his head, and soon he could feel the demon inside him. It was no longer a matter of the TV, it was a battle for his mind. The demon's influence grew stronger with each passing day. Nathan began losing time, waking up in strange places, staring at the TV for hours. Every reflection seemed distorted, and every whisper felt like it was coming from inside his head. He fought to maintain control, but the demon's power was growing, feeding off his fear and weakness. Desperation led Nathan to Claire once more. She told him the only way to stop the demon was a ritual, but it came with a terrible cost. The demon had already begun to bond with Nathan, and the more they fought, the stronger it grew. Nathan had no choice but to face the ritual, even though he knew it might be too late. The demon's power was already overwhelming him. After Claire's cryptic warning, Nathan felt like he had no other choice but to go through with the ritual. But the more he prepared for it, the more he felt the demon's presence creeping into his life. It wasn't just in his mind anymore. It was in his body too. The whispers had escalated, no longer just a background hum, but distinct voices calling out from every direction. The air felt thick with dread, and every time Nathan looked at the TV, the demon's face would appear, its hollow eyes boring into his soul. It was like a curse he couldn't escape. One night, while standing in the living room, trying to calm himself, Nathan felt a sudden, overwhelming cold. He turned to the TV, and there it was again, the demonic figure, clearer than ever. But this time it wasn't just watching him. It was inside him. Nathan's body began to shake violently, his mind spinning out of control. The whispers became screams, growing louder and louder until they drowned out everything else. The demon was in him, taking control. Nathan couldn't tell what was real anymore. The more he fought the possession, the worse it got. He'd wake up in strange places, standing in front of the TV, staring at it for hours. His friends, including Ben, started noticing his strange behavior. They asked him what was going on, But Nathan couldn't explain. How could he tell them that the TV was alive, that a demon was haunting him, trying to break into the real world? The more he ignored it, the more it tormented him. Every shadow in the room seemed to move. Every creak in the floorboards felt like a warning. And the whispers, oh the whispers, kept growing louder. Sometimes he could hear them over the phone, through the walls, even when no one was around. He started seeing things, figures in the corner of his eyes, shadows darting in and out of view. His reflection in the mirror looked strange, too. His eyes were darker, his expression distant, as if something inside him was slowly dying. He would wake up with strange scratches on his arms, marks that Nathan couldn't ignore it any longer. He had to stop the demon, and he had to do it now. The ritual Claire mentioned was his only hope. But he didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle. He spent days researching, but the information he found only deepened his fear. The demon was ancient, tied to his bloodline, a curse that had haunted his family for generations. It had been waiting for the right moment, and now that moment had come. Nathan knew that if he didn't act quickly, the demon would completely consume him. He had tried everything, avoiding the TV, ignoring the whispers, but nothing worked. The demon was patient. It was cunning. And now, it was inside him, clawing its way out. Nathan took the first step, setting up a circle of salt and lighting candles around the TV, just like Claire had told him. He recited the words Claire had given him, but they didn't bring the relief he hoped for. Instead, the room seemed to darken. The air grew heavier. And then he heard it, the voice. "You think you can stop me? The air in the room thickened as the demon's laughter echoed. Nathan tried to focus, to hold on to the ritual's words, but they felt meaningless now. The demon's presence was too strong. It was overwhelming, all-encompassing. The walls of the room began to close in on him. The floor seemed to tremble underfoot. The TV's glow intensified, becoming blinding, and the demon's face stretched and distorted until it filled the screen entirely. Nathan screamed, his mind beginning to crack under the pressure. His arms burned, his skin crawling as though something inside him was fighting to break free. The demon was pulling him in, dragging him toward the screen. The whispers turned to screams, deafening, but Nathan couldn't escape. His body was paralyzed, as if the demon had already taken control. The room spun, the salt circle disintegrating, the candles snuffing out one by one. Nathan was helpless. The demon's voice returned, this time mocking him. "You were always mine. You just didn't know it yet." Nathan's last thoughts were a blur of fear and helplessness. The demon had won. The ritual had failed. His body was no longer his own. He felt the demon surge inside him, its dark energy overwhelming his mind. He screamed, but it was no longer his voice. The demon spoke through him, its words twisted and cold. "I am free," it whispered, "and you are mine forever." The world around Nathan dissolved into chaos, and the TV flickered one last time before it went black. The room grew silent. But deep inside Nathan, the demon stirred, taking its hold completely. He was no longer Nathan. He was its vessel. And in the silence he realized there was no escaping it. The demon had taken everything. Nathan's world was no longer his own. The demon had taken control, but something still felt wrong. It wasn't just the possession, there was a deeper connection, a link between Nathan and the demon that ran far beyond what he understood. The whispers, the visions, they all seemed to be leading him somewhere. As Nathan drifted in and out of his own consciousness, he began to see flashes of something, memories but not his own. He saw an image of a woman, Claire Pyong. She wasn't just an ally. She was part of the curse, part of the bloodline that had brought the demon into this world. The realization hit him like a lightning strike. Claire wasn't trying to help him. She had been orchestrating this entire thing. The ritual, the warnings, everything, she had played him. The demon's voice whispered in his mind, confirming what he feared. "She is the key," it said. "She is why I am here." Nathan fought to take control of his body, to reach the truth, but it was slipping away. The truth was elusive, but the demon's laughter Nathan's mind reeled with the truth. Claire was the one who had unwittingly summoned the demon into their world. She had thought she could control it, but it was too powerful, too ancient. The demon was tied to her bloodline, and by trying to help him, she had only fed it. Nathan had been nothing more than a pawn in her game. The more he thought about it, the more everything made sense. The whispers, the visions, they were all part of the demon's plan to manipulate him, to drag him into the very place it needed him to be. It wasn't just about possession, it was about power. The demon had been biding its time, waiting for the right moment to break free. Nathan wasn't just its victim. He was its vessel. Claire had been using him to fulfill the demon's purpose. The realization cut deeper than any physical wound. Betrayal and fear mixed with fury, as he struggled to break free from the demon's hold. He had to find Claire, confront her, and stop her before it was too late. But the demon, sensing his thoughts, tight. Nathan's sense of reality continued to blur. The demon's grip on him was stronger than ever, but something inside Nathan refused to completely surrender. His thoughts, though clouded, grew clearer with each passing moment. Claire had known what she was doing all along. The demon wasn't just a creature of darkness. It was a part of her, a manifestation of a curse passed down through generations. Nathan now understood that the demon wasn't simply seeking escape. It was seeking a vessel that could allow it to cross over fully. The truth was more terrifying than he could have imagined. It had used Claire's bloodline to find its way into the physical world, and now it had found him. Nathan's blood, his very existence, was the final key. "You are the last piece," the demon whispered inside his mind. "And now, the world will be mine." He felt his limbs grow heavy, the overwhelming power of the demon pressing down on him. He couldn't escape. It was too late. The demon was inside him, and soon, it would break free. Hi. Nathan's blood boiled with anger as the realization sank in. Claire had betrayed him, used him, all to fulfill her own twisted mission. She hadn't been trying to help him, she had been trying to awaken the demon in him. And now, the demon was free to use Nathan as its pawn. Nathan could feel its presence inside him, taking over every thought, every movement. He could hear Claire's voice calling to him, but it was no longer a voice of kindness. It was cold, manipulative. "You can't fight it, Nathan," she whispered. "You never could. You were born for this." The words sent a shock through him. His body began to tremble, the demon's power increasing with every word Claire spoke. His hands clenched into fists. He had to stop her. He had to stop the demon. But how? The thought of confronting Claire terrified him. She was the one who had opened this door, and now, it felt like it was too late to close it. But even as the demon pushed him forward, Nathan knew that he had to make a choice. He had to confront Claire. Nathan knew what he had to do, but the choice came at a terrible cost. To rid himself of the demon, to sever its hold on him, he would have to confront Claire, face to face. But this wasn't just about stopping the demon. It was about ending the curse that had been passed down through generations. Nathan's hands shook as he gathered what little strength he had left. The demon had already started to take over his body, but he was determined not to let it win. If he couldn't destroy the demon, he would at least sever the connection between himself and Claire. With every ounce of his will, he reached for the TV, the source of his torment. The air in the room thickened as he touched the screen, the demon's power intensifying. But Nathan's resolve was unshaken. He would end this. "I won't be your vessel," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. As his fingers pressed against the screen, he could feel the demon's rage building. The room was alive with energy, and Nathan braced for the final confrontation. Nathan felt the weight of the demon's power inside him as he pressed his hand to the TV screen. The room seemed to close in around him as the walls began to tremble. He could hear Claire's voice from the darkness, calling his name, but it wasn't comforting. It was filled with cold intent, and Nathan realized just how deeply she had been tied to the demon all along. "You can't win, Nathan," Her voice echoed through the room. "It's too late for you." Nathan's pulse raced. He felt the demon growing stronger within him, its power pulling him toward the screen. His body trembled, but his mind was clear. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about stopping the demon from escaping into the world, about ending the curse that had followed his bloodline for generations. He had to face it, to end it once and for all. With all his strength, Nathan pushed against the screen, feeling the overwhelming force of the demon's influence, trying to break through his resistance. The screen flickered, the demonic face twisted. The battle within Nathan's mind raged on as the demon's power continued to surge. He could feel it, pulling him, breaking him down from the inside. The more he resisted, the stronger the demon became. Every fiber of his being screamed for him to give in, to let go. But Nathan held firm, refusing to let the demon claim victory. As his body shook with exertion, the TV screen began to distort. The air grew thick with energy, the walls of the room vibrating with the force of the demon's escape. Nathan could feel the demon's presence surge behind him, and then with a violent crack, the screen shattered, releasing a burst of dark energy. The force of the explosion sent Nathan sprawling to the ground, his ears ringing. He looked up to see the demon fully manifesting in the room, its towering form casting an ominous shadow over him. Its eyes gleamed with malevolent power, and it grinned, its jagged teeth gleaming. Nathan staggered to his feet, his head spinning, but he refused to back down. The demon was here in T. Nathan fought to stand, his body aching, his strength waning, but his resolve was stronger than ever. He knew that he had to face the demon head-on. If he didn't, the world would be consumed by its darkness. He didn't have any weapons, no physical means of defense. All he had was his will to survive. The demon towered over him, its voice a low growl. "You are weak," it taunted. "You cannot defeat me. I am eternal." Nathan gritted his teeth, pushing himself to his feet. "I'm not giving up," he muttered. "Not today." As the demon lunged toward him, Nathan reached deep within himself, summoning all the strength he had left. He felt the power surge through him as the demon tried to overtake his mind. It was a battle of wills now. The demon's rage filled the room, but Nathan refused to let it win. He focused on Claire's words, the ritual she had given him, and with every ounce of strength, he spoke the incantation. The demon screamed as the power of the ritual surged through the room, pushing back against it. The demon screamed in fury as the ritual continued, its form flickering and distorting. It was weakening, but not without a struggle. Nathan could feel the last of his strength draining away, his body screaming for him to stop, but he pushed through. He could hear the demon's voice in his mind, growling with frustration. "You cannot win, Nathan," it hissed. "You are mine." But Nathan could feel it now. Its hold on him was weakening. The ritual was working. The power of the incantation was pulling the demon's essence away from him, severing its grip on his mind. "I am not yours," Nathan whispered, his voice breaking. "I am free." The demon's form began to disintegrate, its body breaking apart into shadows. The room seemed to crack and warp, as though reality itself was bending under the strain. Nathan felt his body give one last, desperate push, and with a final cry, the demon was torn apart, its essence dissipating into the air. Nathan collapsed to the floor, his body spent, his mind shattered from the battle he had just fought. The room around him was still and silent, the demon gone, vanished into the ether. He could barely move, but a small part of him felt relief. The curse had been broken. He had won. But as the silence settled, Nathan realized that the victory came at a cost. The shadows still lingered, the memory of the demon haunting the edges of his mind. The TV was gone, but he could still feel its presence, like a dark stain that would never fade. Nathan slowly stood up, his legs weak, and made his way to the door. He wasn't sure where he was going or what came next, but he knew that he could never forget what he had experienced. The demon was gone, but its mark would remain forever. He stepped out into the night, the weight of what he had just endured pressing down on him. The world was still the same, but for Nathan, everything had changed. Nathan sat in the dark silence of his apartment, staring at the empty space where the TV used to be. The remnants of the demon's presence still lingered, like an invisible weight pressing down on his chest. His body was weak, his mind a tangled mess of fear, exhaustion, and grief. The battle had been won, but at what cost? Claire was gone. She had played her part in the ritual, unknowingly helping the demon escape, but now she was gone too. Nathan's hands trembled as he stared at the empty walls around him. The quiet was deafening. He could feel the demon's absence in a strange way. It wasn't just gone. It had left a void, a lingering emptiness that gnawed at him. He couldn't tell if the victory was worth it. The world was still the same, but he was different. He felt hollow, like a part of him had been torn away and replaced with darkness. He had destroyed the demon, but the price had been steep. The curse that had plagued his family for generations had ended, but at the cost of his peace, his stability, and Nathan tried to move on to live a normal life. He threw himself into work, kept to himself, and avoided any contact with the outside world. But the silence was unbearable. He couldn't escape the memories of the demon, the screams, the whispers that still echoed in his mind. The slightest noise would set him on edge, his heart racing, his mind spiraling back to that moment when the demon had fully manifested. It was as if the demon had never truly left. It still haunted him, lurking in the shadows of his thoughts, waiting for a moment of weakness to strike again. At night, he would wake up gasping for air, drenched in sweat, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He would search the apartment for any sign of the demon, but there was nothing. It wasn't real. Or was it? One night, as he lay in bed, a faint sound reached his ears. The softest whisper. "I'm still here." Nathan's heart stopped. The voice was faint, but it was unmistakable. The demon had returned. It wasn't over. Not really. The horror he had fought so. The whispers became louder, more insistent. Nathan couldn't sleep anymore. He would hear the voice in the dead of night, feel the air grow colder around him, as though the demon was still present, still lurking just out of sight. It was always there, just beyond his reach, waiting for the moment when his guard would drop. No matter how much he tried to ignore it, the demon was still in his mind, clawing at the edges of his consciousness. It had taken control of him once before, and it could do it again. Nathan had thought the demon was gone, defeated, but now he realized the truth. It had never really left. The power it had over him was too strong, too ingrained in his very being. It wasn't just in his bloodline. It was part of him now, a permanent scar that would never fade. "You can't escape me," the voice whispered, its presence heavy in the room. Nathan shuddered, his skin crawling. He wasn't free. Not yet. As the days passed, Nathan's grip on reality continued to slip. The demon's whispers grew louder, more constant. He tried to push it out of his mind, to return to normalcy, but it was impossible. The demon had left a permanent mark on him, and he could feel it. The curse had been broken, but its effects would last forever. Nathan knew that there was no escaping it. Even though the demon was no longer physically present, its power was still tied to him, to his bloodline. It would always be a part of him. He had defeated it, yes, but the victory had come at a great cost. The truth was that the demon was never truly defeated, it had only been held back. And as much as Nathan wanted to forget, he couldn't. He would never be free of it. His life had changed forever. The realization hit him hard. He had thought the demon was the greatest evil he would face, but now he understood. The true evil was the power it had over him, the control it still held, and it would never let go. Nathan stood in front of the now blank space where the TV once sat. The room was quiet, too quiet. He thought he had won, that he had escaped the nightmare. But as he stared into the emptiness, he realized the truth. Nothing would ever be the same. He had been changed, his soul scarred by the demon's touch. The curse had passed down through generations, and now it was his burden to bear. He would never escape it. The world outside seemed the same, but Nathan knew better. The shadows still haunted him, always lurking at the edges of his vision. He had fought for his life, but in the end, the demon had taken a part of him that would never return. The silence was broken by a faint whisper, a voice that was both familiar and terrifying. "I'm still here, Nathan." Nathan closed his eyes, his body trembling as the weight of his reality settled in. The demon may have been banished from the world, but it would always be a part of him. He would never be free. The last thing he heard was the soft, chilling sound of the sea. Nathan tried to move on, but the nightmares never stopped. He thought he had escaped, but the truth was more sinister. The demon, though gone from the physical world, had left its mark on his soul. It was always there, lurking in the shadows of his mind. He couldn't escape it. Late one night, as he sat staring at the dark room, Nathan realized the demon had become a part of him. He wasn't just haunted by the past. The demon was inside him, watching, waiting. He could feel its presence, a cold whisper just beneath the surface of his thoughts. The TV was gone, but the horror had never left. A soft, familiar whisper reached Nathan's ears. "I'm still here." The words sent a chill through him. The demon's voice, low and cold, seeped into his mind once more. It never left. The room was silent, but Nathan knew the truth now. The demon was always waiting, always watching. The curse wasn't just a past event, it was his present. Every night, every day, it was with him. No matter how far he ran, the demon would follow. The question now was whether he could live with that. As Nathan looked at the empty room one last time, he felt the demon's cold breath against the back of his neck. It wasn't gone. The silence of the room only served to intensify the horror. The demon had found its way into his soul, and there it would remain, forever. His life would never be the same. It wasn't over. The demon would wait, and one day it would rise again. Nathan walked through his days like a ghost, knowing the demon was still with him. Every creak in the floor, every shadow cast by the moonlight felt like the demon's eyes watching him. He had tried to go back to his old life, to find normalcy, but it was impossible. The demon was inside him, not just as a memory, but as a presence. It haunted his every step, reminding him that escape was a lie. He had broken the curse, but it had changed him. And now, the demon was part of him forever. He wasn't free. Not really. He was just living in the aftermath of the horror that would never fully leave. "You'll always be mine," the voice whispered inside his head. The worst part? He couldn't tell if it was the demon or just his own mind breaking under the strain. One final moment of silence passed. Nathan stood in front of a mirror, his eyes staring back at him. The reflection wasn't just his own, it was the demon's too. The scar the demon had left on him was permanent. And though the physical form of the demon had faded, Nathan knew it wasn't truly gone. He was a vessel now, a prisoner in his own skin. A part of him had been claimed, and there was no undoing it. Cold, silent breath escaped his lips as the last of the demon's whispers filled his mind. He wasn't free, and as the reflection in the mirror seemed to smile back at him, cold and hollow, he knew the demon's hold would never loosen.